Hey guys, Corbett Thompson here on our YouTube page and on the King James Radio Network at jamesisking.com as we welcome you to another edition of our Mets Rant. And so I have a particular Mets rant that I'll save for a few minutes from now. But, you know, as the Mets come off of losing 3 out of 4 to the St. Louis Cardinals here at home over the weekend, and the only reason that the Mets did not get swept in this series was because of the Cardinals outsmarting themselves in the ninth inning of yesterday's game, the Saturday game, where the Mets won 8-7 after they were winning they were winning 8-3 thereabouts, and of course almost gave the game back. And Edwin Diaz, listen, Edwin Diaz and Mickey Callaway even talked about after today's game that he had three relief pitchers down for today's game, which included Edwin Diaz, and Diaz had to sit. For multiple reasons, Diaz had to sit today because he's basically been ineffective over these last 3 outings. So he had to sit today just based on that alone, much less fatigue or anything else. But in any event, listen. Now, first thing I want to tell you is, and I said this to you in a couple of videos ago, that this team, listen, they're not going anywhere this year as far as any championship aspirations. They're not going anywhere this year. That being said, as Chris Berman would put it, that's why you play the games. So they still got to play the season out, okay? Otherwise, why show up? So with that being said, in terms of the rest of this season, now with the loss today, the Mets they're 3 games under 500, and they're 34-37 now on the year as they go on this 11-game road trip coming up to Chicago and then Atlanta, Chicago, and then Philly. So that being said, we talked about the fact that just a moment ago that they probably should have got swept in this series, but St. Louis decided to put a pitcher in as a base runner instead of the more experienced base runner in Yadier Molina. Even though Molina is slower, he's more experienced. So sometimes you have to take experience over talent, let's call it. Like I said, the guy that you put in, he might be a faster runner or whatever, but in this case, he wasn't nearly as experienced on the bases as a Yadier Molina would be, and it cost him because the pinch runner, he tried to score from first base on a bloop base hit to right field. And, trying to score from first base on that, unless you're, Billy Hamilton or somebody like that, it's not going to work. So if Molina was still in the game at that point, he probably would have went from first to third because there was 2 outs. He probably would have went from first to third. And then knowing Molina wasn't going to make it, he probably would have just held it at third base, which would have put Paul Goldschmidt at the plate. And you see Goldschmidt homered in today's game, but it would have put Goldschmidt at the plate in the Saturday game with runners at first and third with a chance to win the game. Or a chance to at least take the lead in the top of the ninth inning. But again, the Mets caught a break there. That's the only reason they didn't get swept in this series. So with that being said, we know, as Met fans, we know the bullpen is terrible. We get that. Here's where my Mets rant, I guess, will come in. See, Brodie Van Wagenen, and I don't know what kind of advice he's getting. I don't know what kind of counsel he's getting. Maybe, I don't know if ownership is in his ear. A lot of people think that Jeff Wilpon is really running the team. But that being said, he needs to stop going after these retread relievers, shuffling guys from Syracuse, these retread relievers to try to come up here and be Band-Aids and stopgaps, because that's exactly what they are, Band-Aids and stopgaps. So, for example, now Wilmer Font, he had a nice outing today. He pitched 3 innings. He had a very good outing, Wilmer Font, and maybe he's turned a corner. But if not, that would be your example of, because he's not there yet, but he's becoming a retread. Tyler Bachelor becoming a retread. Guys like that. Chris Flexen, who gave up the winning run in today's game, he's a retread. We've seen these movies before. And so, like I said, you're just retreading these guys and bringing them back and forth. Hector Santiago, retread. So it's a indictment on the farm system that You haven't been able to find guys that have been able to step up in the long term and produce from the bullpen. You know, because Edwin Diaz is going to be here. Jerry's familiar. He's under contract. He's going to be here. Okay, so that's that. But the rest of these guys, and of course you have Seth Lugo and Rob Gazelman. So either you have to, seriously fix this bullpen with some serious relievers, or you're going to have to fire the manager. One of those two things needs to happen, because I personally think Mickey doesn't know what to do with this bullpen. I've said that before. I don't think Mickey has any idea how to handle this bullpen. I certainly don't think he has an idea on how to utilize Diaz. So, that being said, either fix the bullpen the way it's supposed to be, or get rid of the manager. One of the two. And there are Met fans out there who say both. So I understand that. But you can't keep going if you're going to seriously contend for any playoff aspirations. You cannot continue to go the way you're going with the bullpen. And even the starting pitching is questionable now, with Noah Syndergaard hurt and now Jason Vargas hurt. So now you got double the work now, because now you got to go out and try to find a serviceable starting pitcher. You just put Flexen in the bullpen, and maybe you give Wilmer Font the start based off of his outing today. But now you've got to find, at least temporarily, a fifth starter and a guy that can replace Syndergaard for at least one start. And so I think if you're the Mets here, you're going to have to make a deal. You're going to have to make a deal somewhere along the way here. And I generally, as a general rule, I hate comparing the Mets to the Yankees, because that's what everyone does. They compare because they're in the same town and everything, and because the Yankees, have the history that the Mets don't. The Mets, get compared to the Yankees as the measuring stick. But in this case, you look at the Yankees, right? What do? They go out and get one of the best hitters in the American League, Edwin Encarnacion. 21 homers, thereabouts. They go out and they get him. And what do the Mets do? They go out and they sign this guy Pounders from Cleveland that had an 8.92 career Major League ERA. Yes, he's pitched well in the minors this year, but that's the minors. Now, he had a good outing today. He pitched one scoreless inning in today's game. So we'll see if he's turned a corner at all. But as a general rule, when you're bringing in guys with 8.92 ERAs to pitch in close games in the 8th and 9th innings, Chris Flexen's ERA was up there too. And so you're bringing in these bargain basement guys on the cheap, trying to see if you can, basically what they're doing right now is they're throwing stuff on the wall to see if it sticks. That's basically what they're doing. And chances are it won't. Not forever. It may stick on the wall. You may throw something on the wall and it'll stick for a little bit. It may stick for a day or two, but eventually it's going to come sliding off. And that's what I see happening with these relievers that they're bringing in. Especially these relievers from AAA. You throw them on the wall and they may stick for a day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3, but eventually they're going to come sliding off that wall. So, that being said, listen, going into today's game, I know the Braves, handed the Phillies their heads today, but the Braves, let's see, they'll be 42-30 coming in. The Phillies 39-32. And then you have the Cubs. The Cubs are in first place in the Central, in the National League Central. So you got first and second place teams coming up on your road trip. And this will be the last thing I say before I go. This is where the Mets really, and there's several crossroads in the season. This is one of them, because if the Mets, let's say they go 9-2, right, on this road trip, because one of three things is going to happen. Let's say they go 9-2 on this road trip, right? And that means they're 3 games under 500 now. So if they go 9-2 on the road trip, then they'll be 4 games over 500, which would put them in pretty good shape in terms of the wild card anyway. So you have that one scenario. Another scenario is, let's say the Mets go somewhere around 500. It's 11 games. So let's say they go 5-6. They go 5-6, but that puts them at 4 games under 500. So that even puts them even further behind, most likely. And then let's say disaster happens. Let's say they go 3-8 on the road trip. They go 3-8 on this road trip. They're 8 games under 500, and they're pretty much cooked. So one of those three things is going to happen on this next road trip. And like I said in my last video, I don't think that, first of all, number one, I don't think they're firing Mickey Callaway anytime soon. I think their intention, I mean, plans could change, but I think their intention is to let him, manage the rest of the season, regardless of what happens. I think they will at least give him the rest of this season and then make a decision afterwards. That's what I think they will do. Now, again, if the Mets fall into completely in the tank and they're 15 games under, 20 games under, or 15 games out of a playoff spot, that could all change. But all things being equal, I think they'll give Mickey until the end of the season. And that, plus, I don't think Joe Girardi would come here anyway. I said that in my last video. I don't think Joe Girardi's coming here. So that's just me. I just don't see why he would want to come here. I understand, it's New York, and I understand, he likes the core and the nucleus of the team and all of that. But you know what? You could like the core and the nucleus of a lot of teams. So I don't necessarily buy that Girardi wants to come manage the Mets. That's just me. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong a million times before. I'll be wrong a million times again. So anyway, that is my Mets rant for this week. My Mets rant primarily centers around the fact that, we're getting all these retreads for the bullpen, and we're wondering why we're giving up leads. We wonder why, they can't close a game. I mean, even in the game that they won, Diaz didn't retire, couldn't get a guy out. So, when you there's a lot of folks on Twitter would say garbage in, garbage out. So, anyway, that's it for me. I'm going, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, especially those fathers that are Mets fans. I sympathize with you. And so I will talk to you next time, all right? Bye-bye.